Anyway, let's get back to the goddamn government shutdown and the crisis averted.
The bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
There is nothing funnier to me. Like, listen, it doesn't matter what your politics are about, like funding Ukraine, Russia's unjustifiable invasion of Ukraine. But there is something hilarious about like a Republican leader being like, we have to fund Ukraine. And that's why I'm not passing the spending package, which I'm glad he did because they got everything in this one, as far as I understand it. Then he was supposed to do that. It's crazy to me that 5 Republicans would just like destroy the entirety of the government. New York Representative Jamal Bowman pulls fire alarm in the House building, but it says it was an accident. Wait, what? Bowman's office said it was an accident. The congressman told reporters later Saturday, I was trying to get to a door. I thought the fire alarm would open the door, and I pulled the fire alarm to open the door by accident. I was just trying to get to my vote, and the door that's usually open wasn't open. It was closed. Wait, what the I think he thought it was an emergency door. Bro, the intrusive thoughts won, dude. What the That's hilarious. Kevin McCarthy was stuck between a rock and a hard place. The rock is the 5 sick freak Republicans, or I mean, I guess it was like 21, but 5 major ones that are just like being a thorn on his side, who say the moment that you collaborate with the Democratic Party, we're going to unseat you, which he had to give those assurances to those freaks, the Never Kevers, right? Who we love and support. So the Never Kevers were just like throwing a tantrum with like some of the most insane demands. And we're like, oh yeah, you have to give in to these demands and like, pass this in the House with our votes, which by the way would have, never passed the Senate anyway. So that would have still effectively shut down the government. He had an opportunity to either do that, work with the psychopathic Never Kever caucus, and put forward a bill that was not going to pass in the Senate, or go along with a deal that they had already cut, which meant working with the Democratic Party, which would immediately cause him to lose his job. So we'll see what happens here.
And of course,
Sims are taking victory laps. Yeah, I mean, in a weird way, they should, because the reality is this is the dumbest situation of all time, and it like perfectly demonstrates once again like what is just fundamentally wrong with the Republican Party. But the other reality, the scarier side of this conversation, is that like we should never have this happen. And given the way that our government currently operates, there is no real way to fix it. Truly striking L for House conservatives demanding massive domestic spending cuts. A few days ago, far-right GOP was insisting 10% of cuts to domestic programs were insufficient. Now it looks like they're going to get 0% of cuts instead, albeit also no Ukraine dollars for the time being. It's just so odd that like we just have to have this political back and forth like every 45 days. It's so dumb. It's not a real conversation. That's what makes me so mad about it. The worst part about it is that pretty much everyone that's playing along in this political theater knows it's fake. Does that make sense? I don't know what else to say about it other than it's pure political theater, and everybody knows it's pure political theater, and yet they choose to act out their roles instead. Like nobody just takes a deep breath and goes, dude, what are we doing? Like this is all fake. This is nonsense. Like we're just making this shit up. As an EU chatter, it's just wild that this conversation even happens in Ireland. I don't even know the budget is happening until it's announced and discussed like for max one day. Yes, because that is how it works everywhere. That is technically how it works in America too. That's the other part. It's just that any kind of obstruction or any kind of hurdle can always be used by the Democratic Party and the Republican Party as though it's like a serious one that we cannot live without, and therefore we have to have like genuine deliberation, genuine back and forth on the matter. When in fact, it's just another technical hurdle that does not need to exist and therefore is very frustrating.
He betrayed the Republican conference, that he betrayed promises that he made to become the speaker, and he could face potential consequences for that. I think that Matt Gaetz has been very clear that he is deeply frustrated with the Speaker of the House, and it's not just Gaetz, there are others as well who have questioned McCarthy's leadership. But
I think the media is wrong for this too. I think the media's coverage of this as though it's like a serious issue. I mean, it is a serious issue if it happens, but like whenever CNN covers this government shutdown as though these are like serious political demands that these Never Kevers are making with like genuine ideological differences, like it's just wrong. Like they're lying to you. They know that there is no serious political disagreements here. It's all just theater, and they are allowing this theatrical display to continue by leaning into the seriousness. You know what I mean? They're like, oh yeah, there's like some serious differences. There's some serious disagreements here. It's just very odd. Like, why are you doing that? I feel like at this point you're basically also doing a disservice to the public. Dude, I don't know why people are coming in here asking me why Jamal Bowman pulled the fucking fire alarm. How am I supposed to know? Bitch, I don't know. I've only talked to him a couple times on the phone. And that was years ago when I thought he was like way more progressive than he actually is. Like, he's not my best friend. What the fuck? Senate Democrats have the opportunity to do the funniest thing just for the fuck of it. Obviously, they wouldn't do that because that would destroy them. But just for the fun, just for the funsies, they're just like, yeah, actually, we thought this budget sucks.
If you could, Lauren, for us, quickly, just kind of summarize what this Stop Gap Spending bill is all about. It does allow for money toward natural disasters, but it's without Ukraine assistance. What else?
Yeah, this is a 45-day short-term spending bill that funds the government through mid-November. Obviously, this is going to give them a couple of weeks to negotiate a fuller package, but this is where things could get very tricky because House Republicans have outlined to their members a very aggressive schedule that includes voting on individual one-year spending bills that would fund various agencies across the federal government. That schedule and those bills still face long odds in the House, but they are conservative bills that are going to be dead on arrival in the United States Senate.
Hey, Chad, has Hasan talked about his stance on Ukraine spending? Don't want to derail the coverage, but I'm curious. I don't think I would spend a dime on Ukraine without conditions. The aid should be conditional, but of course it's never going to be conditional. I don't have an issue with like the aid going to Ukrainian small businesses, in my opinion, but not those kinds of conditions, for the record. Let me clarify. Aid from the United States of America under the auspices of U.S. aid oftentimes have conditions of austerity and conditions of control, not that kind of conditions. Conditional aid, as far as on the weapons side, should revolve around like the obvious boundaries that the American government already sets, like not using it on Russian soil, blah, 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 better tracking measures, but also, with an express purpose of like inevitably ending the war. Why not on Russian soil? I mean, ask the American government. What do you mean, why not on Russian soil? It is a delicate balance of like not upsetting Russia enough, kind of, from the American perspective at least, that they don't consider it to be like an act of war between America and Russia. But they're slowly but surely like, maxing out on the tension side. Aren't they already fighting on soil Russia claims as it is? No. We're talking about like mainland Russia, like straight up fucking like Russia prior to Russian invasion of Ukraine borders Russia. And they kind of fucking drop some munitions on Russian territories from time to time. They do targeted strikes and whatnot. And then they also do like drone strikes every now and then. But the drones and stuff that they drop on Russian soil, especially like deeper into Russian soil, is oftentimes not American shit. But yeah, my perspective on this has always been the same. Like any kind of aid should be given to Ukraine on the ultimate goal of trying to, end this war, end this conflict. Ukrainian territorial gains and W's are good because they're just and they're fair. But those territorial W's should be specifically so that like you can get back to the bargaining table with Russia and create conditions for a ceasefire. Like when Ukraine reclaims his territory, that's not specifically to liberate Ukraine. It's also to show to Russia that like you have better leverage at the bargaining table, right? That's why weapons are necessary in that process. That much I understand. But if the party that is like funding you has no interest in you actually negotiating, then it sucks. You know what I mean? Then it's just like it's never ending war of attrition. Even Zelensky said they want 1991 borders. Yeah, that doesn't matter. Zelensky can say that, but Zelensky's not a fucking idiot. Like he's also literally agreed to different terms before, or at least like politically has openly said he would kick the can back 15 years down the line for a separate referendum. Do you get what I'm saying? It's just posturing. He knows it's posturing. Borger is also correct. Our Georgian correspondent says, yeah, but I also think their expectations were that by now Ukraine would have pushed Russia back further, and meanwhile Russia is digging deeper for a longer war. Yeah, the counteroffensive that was supposed to launch in the spring never fully launched, or it launched, but it never, yielded the results that they wanted it to yield. And now it's just like back and forth shelling. Who's gaining ground in Ukraine this year? No one. Yeah, exactly. That's why whenever I fucking say, dude, it's literally inches of territory, and people get so mad at me, but like, okay, well, the New York Times is saying it too, you know what I mean? And guess what? There is ground that has been taken at this point. You know what I mean? So technically being like, oh, there's the front line is not moving is a bit of a copium, because like the front line did move into Ukraine by Russians who directly took this line up to this fucking line. So now there's like plenty of back and forth as like all of the Eastern Ukrainian territories are just getting fucking bombed into oblivion. People are doing trench warfare, but technically the territorial gains made by one party is the Russian party. And it fucking sucks. It sucks so bad that they're doing like World War I style trench warfare and just, doing meat grinder shit. Is really fucked up. Both sides started the year with lofty ambitions. Russia wanted to capture the eastern Donbass region, while Ukraine aimed to split Russian forces with an attack in the south. Neither offensive has gone to plan. The front line, after months of grueling combat and heavy casualties, remains largely unchanged. Meanwhile, while this is happening, there's a tremendous human toil here, and you got our politicians going to fucking Kiev and cutting propaganda, being like, we are excited that this war is going on as it's 5%, for only 5% of our military budget and not a single U.S. soldier dying, we've been able to destroy the Russian military and wither it away by 50%. It's like, dude, that's like, there's people dying. You know what I mean? When you talk about it like it's a fucking big business deal, you once again fail to consider that there are fucking Ukrainians getting butchered out there. There's Russian conscripts and shit getting butchered out there too. It's nuts that Americans are so fucking callous in their indifference when talking about these sorts of things. It's just, I don't know. I mean, I feel like it's got blowback written all over it. This ad for Crimeans to sign the contract for joining the Russian army shows a Russian soldier and an alleged Ukraine prisoner of war. They are playing the word game in the ad. The slogan says, we return the names to our cities. Disgusting, cynical. How would you describe the ad? Wait, what?
Новороссийск. Тебе на К.
Киев.
Волгоград.
Днепр.
Нет такого города.
This is insane, bro. This is like, why are they cutting Hollywood budget terrorism videos, dude? What the fuck? This is an insane fucking first of all, it's copium. Like, yeah, Russia ain't doing any of that shit, okay? Good luck, motherfucker. I mean, what are you talking about? The reality of this is, yes, it doesn't look good for Ukraine, but it certainly doesn't look good for Russia either. You can talk a big game all you want and act like, you're taking over, but like, motherfucker, this ain't Crimea. You know what I mean? You didn't like roll over and have the public go, okay, a referendum at gunpoint, certainly, but it's a little different than the zero casualty Crimean takeover, okay? It's ridiculous. They haven't been able to push past this line in a year.
Putin is an enemy of America. We've used 5% of our defense budget to arm Ukraine, and with it, they've destroyed 50% of Putin's army. We've done all.
Bro, I'm not gonna lie, this is fucking so gross. Like everyone yelled at me like a year and a half ago when I basically was saying that this is their main purpose. And now they're just openly saying it. So all the people that are yelling at me, what's up? Like, how do you feel now? Do you feel like it's like, no, this is actually a great idea? If you're a liberal, for example, this is a bipartisan issue. This 5% for 50% of the Russian military talking point doesn't just come from Lindsey Graham. It also comes from Chris Murphy. Chris Murphy is one of the first people who openly stated this. Treating Ukrainian bodies like it's ROI is crazy to me. When will you learn their libs don't give a shit? Not even Ukrainians care that they're being used for ROI. Yes, because Ukrainians are, while they do have a nation state, Ukrainians are learning a very tough lesson, or will inevitably learn a very tough lesson that the Kurds learned, where when you're stuck between a rock and a hard place, aligning with the U.S. for unlimited funds and weapons, conditional aid and conditional loans and conditional weapons, but conditions being that the war continues for as long as America wants it to, is not a bargain that ends up yielding positive results. Now, of course, it is a bargain that many will take on when they're forced into that corner that Russia backed them into, which is a fucking full-scale invasion. Like, why the fuck wouldn't you want to defend yourself? Makes total sense. So, yeah. Of course, they're like, no, this is great. Like, they're giving us money. They're helping fund our small businesses. Good. Like, there's nothing we can do. Truly striking L overall for the conservatives, demanding massive domestic spending cuts, which was really fucked up. Getting back to the United States of America and our clown show here.
And obviously, it is a sigh of relief for a lot of federal workers who didn't know if when they went to work on Monday, they were going to be going to work at all, whether they would be going to work without pay, and what the future really presented. Because there was a scenario where if you get into a prolonged shutdown, it's very hard to get out of it, right? Because both sides are dug in. It takes time for negotiators to start to feel that political pressure, feel the pain of Americans who are experiencing a lack of government services, and really that to start to shake things loose. So,
bro, that would require any politician of any party to have like a shred of morality in their hard drive. Okay, they don't. The idea that Republicans are more considerate and careful about the shutdown if they're up for re-election is a real one. That's a real political calculation that they make, because they're like, oh, how much of this will look bad for us? Because right now it looks like we're a fucking clown show. Right now, it looks like, especially at the national level, fuck the presidential election, but like every other election, our party is looking real bad because it's infighting, and like we can't even throw the stink on the Democrats. Which, by the way, ironically, when Democrats held the House and the Senate, that was what was going on with the Democrats. If you remember, I kept saying it's always bad to be infighting and not being able to whip your fucking caucuses, because everyone will look at you and go, wow, Democrats can't even pass their legislation effectively. They can't even do that in a fast and expedient manner. What the fuck is going on? Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema are the guys that like fucked over the Democratic Party's legislative agenda. And it's not even just them. It's a revolving, it's a rotating villain, right? But still, like that made the Democratic Party look bad because no one thinks about how every Republican is voting against these spending packages that are ultimately good for Americans, right? No one thinks about the demons on the other side if the entire media is covering the other stopgap, which happens to be inside of the Democratic Party. And it's the same thing happening with the Republicans right now. Absolutely zero people will blame the Democrats for this government shutdown because it's not up to the Democrats. Like the Republicans can't even put a fucking bill to the table until today. That's a calculation, a real calculation that Republicans up for re-election have to make, where they probably tell Kevin McCarthy, like, dude, stop fucking around. Like, we have to push a spending bill because otherwise this is our fuck up. It's good if we put a spending bill forward and then the Democrats say no to it or something, and the demands are relatively reasonable, and yet they were able to, and they're the ones who are unreasonable for not pushing that spending package. But we can't even put forward a spending package. Like, what the fuck are we doing? It's so embarrassing. So that political calculation on the Republican front is real. Oh my God, everyone realizes how fucking bad we are at our jobs. However, anything beyond that, like, the morality of like Republican legislators caring about furloughed government employees, like, no, they don't give a shit about that, dude. Get the fuck out of here. They want to fire half the federal agency and people who work there. Like, that's like a open goal that they have. They don't give a fuck. When did you become a Republican? When I stopped being a libtard, brother. When I grew. You know, when I had a heart, I was a liberal. When I had a brain, I became a Republican.
Or might this be an invitation at the White House for members of parties on all sides to come to the White House? Let's work this out. Let's come up with a plan that everyone's going to like so that by November 17, we're not back at this juncture again.
Yeah, why would they do that? They didn't have to have this happen this time either. They do that because they want to fucking have fake fights. Except this time around, the Never Kevers gave a gift to the Democratic Party by fucking up the process before the Republican caucus could like organize with a budget that the Democrats would have to say no to. That's it. That's literally what happened.